you've come a long way. We have worked over now some hours around developing your capacity to listen, to understand, and to see. Now we're going to do a shift in this final module because we also want you to be able to walk towards a direction. It's one thing to be able to make the connection, but to move from connection to direction. James writes, it's not just enough to say, be warm and be fed, but if I don't do anything. Now this is the part of our helping in which I'm going to assist you in making change. There are 4 simple words: hearing, hoping, hindrances, and highway that we want you to be focusing on.
We want to start with the story of Paul and Silas in jail. This really inspired us because what happened to them, if you remember the story in Acts, they were beaten, they were flogged, they were thrown in jail for trying to be helpful, actually. And they ended up in jail, and there was nothing they could do. They were in stocks even. They couldn't even walk around the room. There was really nothing they could do. So at midnight, they start singing to the Lord. They start praying and singing loudly to the Lord. And everyone could hear them. And then God decided to do an earthquake and change the direction of their lives. There really wasn't much they could do. But we were struck by so many people's struggles in life. There's a lot of it that there's not much you can do in the moment other than to wait on God and to try to remain faithful to God. Other times there are things you can do. Once the earthquake had happened, they could get up. They said, hey, we're still here. They made a choice. We're not running away so that the jailer did not have to, be punished. They made some choices at that point. They had volition and choices to make. And they actually ended up saving the jailer, and his whole family came to the Lord because of their decisions at that point. So we really want to talk through a little bit about these steps and think in terms of what can the person do and what are things to just wait on the Lord and pray.
Yeah. The first component is the hearing of the story. That's what you've been doing in these previous modules. We've been teaching you how to hear, how to receive just the story as they sit. But the second component here is to rethink our hope. So as Paul and Silas were in jail, that's the story. Here we were in chains, in the stocks, tied to, secured to this stone wall. That's the hard reality. But their hope in God was in, and we will sing. So it's the perspective of hoping. The third one is our hindrances. Hindrances are the limitations and the realities of everything that gets in the way. And the fourth one is the highway, literally taking on an elevated path. We want to walk through each one of these with you. So, hearing the story, we have put extensive time in being able to understand and hear. And there are 2 factors in this hearing. One is the pushing, and the other is the pulling. And the push and the pull are always present in stories. There is a problem, a reality that I have to push away from, and there is a solution, a creativity that I can drive myself towards. So in every situation, there is always going to be, and listening for, both the push and the pull.
So like Paul and Silas wanted the flogging and the jail to go away, I'm sure.
That's the push.
They were
that's
humans.
awful.
These are awful things. They were real things in their lives. But the pull is they wanted to trust God. They wanted to praise God, and they wanted to witness to Jesus' transformative power in the lives of the people around them.
And how you hold both push and pull in that it's not like, this is awful, and we're going to minimize that. It's painful. It's horrible. It's egregious at times. And there's this pull.
What to do.
Hope. Accepting the things that are circumstances that are unchangeable. And we can lament, and we can cry, and we can acknowledge the suffering of the circumstances that we are in. And that there is this promise that our God does not leave us alone, and that I cannot see, because of the fog of my pain, much beyond that. But I have to be able to trust you, because you're not caught in the fog.
Yeah.
I can't see it, but you as my helper can.
Yeah.
So like I cling to you, or I cling to others within my community, because I cannot see it. So I rely on this hope that I know but that I cannot see.
That's right. It's a shared hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the community of the church. Yeah.
Hindrances. The reality is life is hard, and that there are blocks and impediments and difficulties and challenges and things that will get in the way. In the story that you hear of Casey and Jordan, the reality is that Casey's mom is being ushered into heaven. She is in her final years of life. Maybe this month, maybe this year, maybe next year, but not 30 years. That's the reality that now Casey has to address directly, and that can get in her way, or she can recognize what the limitations of those realities are, and how do I live with those realities and create choices with the things that I cannot change.
That's right. Yeah. And then it's hard sometimes to get stuck in the hindrances and only notice them, but it can be helpful to really talk through, like, what are hindrances that just cannot be moved, like the aging parent, and what can be moved, what's possible to move a hindrance, like being able to get to church on Sunday so that, you know, Casey's not alone, as alone as she would be if she stays home. That's something she has a choice about.
Like with our arms chained to the stone wall, that's a reality. I'm stuck here, and I cannot move, and it's outside of my power and my control.
That's right.
And that's an undeniable limitation and hindrance to my life. Now what?
Yeah, now I can praise.
Yeah.
I can pray.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can try to trust God, and I can lament in the difficult times. Yeah.
The fourth word, the highway. Think about it in two directions. One is we have the phrase highway as a path, as the means that I get to a destination. And second, highway as elevated. It's going to require for you in thinking about what is the courageous path, the elevated path that you can take. You certainly can stay in this state of despair and discouragement and fear. But that is not the only way that you can address the pains that you are facing. Like, everybody doesn't have to attend to the situations that we're in as that is our only option. We can create multiple options in addition to the reality of the road that we're on right now.
Yeah, and that highway can be invoking the presence of God, right? That courage can be found by turning to God and asking God, what is your higher purpose here? What is it that you're doing in my life and those around me to help me have some purpose in this struggle?
Right. And that's where our scripture comes in to give us an elevated perspective on being able to cope. That's why David and others wrote the Psalms, to create some sense of highway, elevated vision over the suffering that I'm in.
Yeah. You know, back in the beginning, I talked a little bit about my parenting struggle, and how I had a friend, Kelly, who listened to me. In that same time, I was cross-stitching Psalm 13, and those kinds of, like, meditating on the Psalms are really helpful, and something you can do when the thing you can't do anything about and can't change right then is to accept, but I can meditate on Psalm 13.
Yeah. That is powerful.
Yeah, it can be a powerful experience. Okay, so this is what we're going to ask you to do during this time together. You're going to get with your partner, and you're going to pretend like you're in meeting number 3 right now. This is the plan and pray meeting. In this, you're going to return to a summary of what is the concern. Now that you've spent a couple of times talking, a couple of hours maybe, talking about the problem, you're going to help to summarize what the concern is. And sometimes it can be kind of tangled all over the place, and so you're trying to pull it into the concern. Then you're going to go to the hope. What has to wait on the Lord, and what can change? And hope is waiting sometimes. And through that, moving through the resources the person has. And you're going to just sit together and come up and write down, what resources might Casey have? What are spiritual resources, personal, church, community, family, friends? What resources might the person of Casey have that she could access for the problems that she's facing? And then you're going to pray for God's plan and turning to the provider of hope for all of us. Do this often. Do it before the meeting, do it during the meeting, do it after the meeting, right? Pray often for the problems that the person's facing, and then come up with a plan. And particularly try to be specific about it. What are they going to do in the coming couple of weeks? And what are they going to do in the next couple of months about the problem, the concern that they have? Go ahead and spend time discussing hindrances, the third H. What are things that are going to make that plan difficult, right? What is going to get in the way? What are things you can pray for? And what are things you can change and can't change about those hindrances? And finally, the highway. Where is God in this plan? Where do you see the voice of God and the action of God? And where are you waiting to see the earthquake? And maybe it won't be quite as dramatic as an earthquake in your story or in the story of your Casey's that you work with. But God does show up in ways that we can count on. And he will always be there for us because he is a faithful God. So spend some time listening to the voice of God as you make your plan. We do want to address what you will do in additional meetings. We said that your time in listening and in the church cares ministry is generally 3 to 6 meetings. And we've talked about 3 meetings. So what do you do in meetings 4, 5, and 6? Well, there's some flexibility here. For some people, they have so many difficulties and multiple things going on. It may take more than 2 meetings to kind of untangle the story. You may need 3 or even 4 meetings to untangle the story. There's some room for that. Also, you might return after making the plan and have a chance to talk about it. We really do recommend at least 1 more meeting that you sit down and talk about, how did your plan go? Did the hindrances happen as you planned, as you thought they would? Or did you run into additional ones? And what else can I pray for you about that? Follow up on that. And what's really important around sessions 3 and 4 is that you connect them back into the community of care that your church or ministry provides. If they can join a small group, if they can join a Sunday school class, if they can join a particular group that's specific to the problem that they're facing, you really want to make sure you spend some time helping them with that in these final meetings.
Yeah, that idea of, where does this solution happen? God moves in the lives of community, and you are facilitating a person into the community. You are not responsible for rescuing, for solving, for fixing these concerns. As after Casey and Jordan have ended their relationship, Casey still has to plan for next summer, next fall for school. She still has what's going to happen in her relationship. She still has caring for her mother. But she has built in now a community of support around those concerns and those weights. And there is a sense that a burden shared is a burden halved. So I just unloaded much of my burden because I'm sharing it within my community.
Absolutely. So in your final time with your partner, we ask you to walk through and the roles of Casey and Jordan, and walk through the hearing the story, where's the hope, discuss the hindrances, and what is the highway as you finish up your time. Thank you very much for being a part of this.
We're so grateful.
We are so grateful.